Hey team, been a hot minute since I've recorded one of these. Time just flies, you know? So I had a couple things I want to share with you this week. Most of the things came up later in the week, but it was a top of mind for me. So the first thing I wanted to kind of talk you through was I spent a good bit of time refining an epic for creating dedicated pages in the compliance report. This will make more sense as we continue to build out the merge request violations, but I'll kind of show you what I'm envisioning for the journey. So here's the main epic, and I've kind of outlined a little bit of a proposal here. Probably the biggest question mark I have in terms of like where it might land in terms of execution or implementation is this precursor issue. One of the struggles we see users or even our own team members trying to figure out how to use this function is what commit SHA to use. So we were considering expanding the scope. That's been an open issue for a pretty long time. So we'll see if we do that at the beginning or at the end of this. But most of this is a lot of front end work. So how I kind of envision us going into this visionary state. So what this does is it basically just taking the data that we already have in the CSV and just exposing it nicely in the UI so that users can actually sift through this information. But there are definitely obviously some limitations that we have with our current architecture. For example, we don't display projects that are in subgroups currently, so that might have to be something that we try and find a way to work in, but don't know if we'll be able to solve that. So just kind of chipping through each of these. So like I said, first going through expanding the scope so we could incorporate more things. But then I'm envisioning us creating tabs. So we have one for merge request violations, another one for commit custody. And just to start out, just like a simple empty state message with that same button that we already have, creating a primary action for it to either get all the merge commits or for users to still find their specific one. And then going from there, adding in another empty state in case there aren't actually any commits that have been merged. I'm not entirely sure that I have this right, like which commits appear here, honestly, and that is probably a gap with our documentation and in my own knowledge. So if you catch something, let me know. We'll definitely refine the text so that we're more accurate, but this is generally what I'm thinking would make the most sense. So then once we have those empty states in, we can start to redesign the layout of the page. So this is where some of the bulk of the work is going to begin. So taking that CSV data, creating these individual rows, breaking them down into each piece. What I'm imagining here is that these links, or rather these would all be hyperlinks, just not necessarily colored like that necessarily, because it'd be kind of annoying to have everything colored blue on this page. But taking that same data and just making it easy for the users to dig through, being able to find what they're looking for, and still while retaining our export functionality, which is important for audit reports. I anticipate, because it's probably be a lot of data, especially for something like GitLab org, that we would need to add pagination. I don't know how many records that means we can pull back at once. I think we normally say like 20 is a good place to start, but if we have to go down to like 10, whatever it may be, we'll just do what we need to. And then I see us trying to refine the export experience. So adding individual export buttons to each commit themselves, and then also having a function for all commits would be pretty great. And then allowing users to search for a specific commit. Now this kind of does two things. So not only can they search for a specific commit, but they can also choose to export just based off of the commits that they find. So let's say I searched for this specific commit SHA. It came back with two results because it was tied to two different merge requests. I want to be able to export both of those or each one individually. And then if I get none, we give them an empty state message telling them, hey, your search result didn't match any commits. These illustrations, or TBD, are product illustration library, kind of shrunk, but is also evolving. So we don't have a ton of options right now. We may need to create those in the future, but something just to kind of hold over. And then what I would find super useful, being able to designate what type of commit something is. I still have no idea what the commits are that are in that report. Like it tells you it can be a merge commit, it could be a squash commit, it could be a diff commit, but I have no idea how to tell what that is in the UI. So this is my suggestion for making that possible, like adding a badge just simply as a prefix to the commit, just to help draw a little attention to differences that users might be inquiring about as they're thinking through the commit custody. And then lastly, I mean, having all these projects in the same org will create a lot of noise. So I again think it's another important area where we're going to be able to give users the ability to be able to drill down to a specific project. Right now they can't. So basically users have to do all this work in their own environments, meaning they need to take out the CSV, maybe open that in Excel, open that in Google Sheets, do their own table manipulation just to refine it to a specific data set. Some ways that I could see us continuing to evolve this is being able to take like a comma separated list of commit SHAs. Like you might have a auditor being told to investigate like 7 different commit SHAs, handing that off and giving them the ability to use this as their launching point. But one of the limitations that we have is the data set that you're presented is you only get the projects that are just the one child underneath. So kind of way I was even trying to communicate that is we don't pull commits from projects and subgroups. You have to use whatever's in that parent group. I would love for that not to be the case, but I don't know if we're going to be able to get around that. So that was a lot. I don't know if this is the best implementation plan at all. This was just my thinking of how could we slowly release this but not have to keep everything behind a feature flag. Just taking one component at a time, slowly adding more value to it, and then eventually reaching a final state. There's probably going to be more implementation issues for just these alone, so we'll see where that goes. The next thing I wanted to quickly highlight is coming up in 14.8. So thanks to Dan and Dennis as well, but we split the project deletion UI user journey basically into 2 main issues. I'm going to compare and contrast those for you here. So essentially the one on my left here is focused on refining the UI text specifically. So this isn't actually changing any of the interface itself, it's just refining the current text that's presented, just to try and make it a little more clear and concise. While the issue on the right is focused on improving some of the things that we would like to see in terms of our vision for settings in the advanced area, as well as creating a specific like visual distinction for this area because it is so critical that users make the right decision here, and help illustrate what we're thinking. This will lead to my next point too down in my agenda, but we have this effort to try and unbox GitLab, and we're just trying to take away some of the borders, some of the extra lines that add weight to users as they're progressing through our interface. So this helps the container itself stand out in a unique way comparatively to the rest of it. So we'll be iterating towards that by probably revising each section and then getting to this ultimate vision. But in the meantime, we're just focused on the project deletion component itself. So back to my agenda here. A really cool tip of the day, I forget about this all the time, and Evan Reed is so kind to remind me of this. But there's a recommended word list in our docs, and this is just so helpful. Like there's so many times that I'm trying to write a better sentence, and there's guidance in here for it. So if you're something as simple as just, how should I refer to a different version of GitLab? There's something that tells you whether to use above or previous, as an example. And this is also a super insightful video. I was talking a little about unboxing GitLab. You're probably going to see more issues around this in the future on the front end side, especially as we try and remove some of the visual noise and clutter from the application itself. But yeah, here we are.